Have you ever watched an empire collapse in slow motion? That's where we are right now in 2025. Decades of nonstop messaging that men are the problem, that masculinity itself is toxic, that the world would somehow be better if half the population just disappeared or shut up forever. All of that has finally landed exactly where it was always designed to land. And the craziest part, the people who spent years screaming, "We don't need men," are now wandering around in total disbelief because millions of men looked them dead in the eye, nodded, and said, "Oh, cool. We're good then." Stick with me to the very end of this video because I'm going to show you exactly how we got here, why men are genuinely happier and more at peace than any time in the last 50 years, and why the next 10 years are going to be remembered as the great humiliation. You're not going to want to miss a single second of this. If you want more raw, no filter, angry guy breakdowns like this one, smash that like button right now. Share this video with every man you know who's waking up, and subscribe with notifications on so you never miss when I drop the next one. Also, if you're tired of watching your wealth disappear the moment you get into a relationship or even talk to the wrong person, go check out Angry's Crypto Academy. The link is in the description. That's where I teach regular guys how to actually buy, sell, trade, and most importantly, protect your assets in a world that is openly hostile to men building anything. Click that link right now while it's on your mind. And if these videos are hitting home and you want to keep the Angry Guy channel fueled up and making more of them, you can buy me a Red Bull. Link in the description. Every can keeps the rage pure and the take spicy. Appreciate every single one of you who throw one in the tank. Let's get into it. Picture this. It's 2015. The internet is exploding with new rules every single day about what men are and are not allowed to do. Don't look at a woman too long, Charles. Creepy. Don't approach a woman you don't know. That's harassment. Don't sit with your knees apart on the subway. That's manspreading, and you're literally oppressing people with your toxic masculinity. Don't compliment a woman at the gym. You're making the space unsafe. Don't even breathe in the direction of a woman recording a TikTok, because if she decides she doesn't like the way you exist in the background, you're getting doxxed and fired by tomorrow morning. And the whole time this avalanche of new rules is coming down, men are told with a straight face that all of this is about equality. Just treat women the way you want to be treated, bro. Just listen and believe and just be better. So men did what men always do when they're told something over and over by every institution that matters. You follow schools, jobs, media, government, even their own families. They listened, they adapted. They started shutting up, backing off, and moving away from the minefield. Fast forward 10 years, and the results are in, and they are devastating for the people who wrote those rules. Surveys started popping up. Would you rather be alone in the woods with a bear or with a random man? And millions of women picked the bear. Not because every man is dangerous, I found, obviously, but because the propaganda campaign worked better than anyone could have dreamed. They actually convinced an entire generation of women that the average man walking down the street is more of a threat than a 700-pound wild predator. And men saw that poll. They saw the comments. They saw the likes. They saw their sisters, their coworkers, even their own mothers laughing about how they choose the bear. And something quiet but irreversible happened inside millions of men in that moment. They finally got the message loud and clear. You're not wanted here. You're not trusted. You're not safe to be around. Cool. Message received. So they left. Not with screaming, not with protest, not with violence. They just left. They stopped approaching. They stopped dating apps, deleted them in the millions. They stopped planning their lives around finding the one. They stopped seeing marriage as a goal and started seeing it as the single biggest financial risk a man can take in 2025. And here's where the story gets wild. The moment men stopped chasing, stopped simping, stopped trying to prove they were one of the good ones, their lives got better, like dramatically better, faster than anyone predicted. Gym memberships for men exploded. Men started businesses at rates we haven't seen in decades. Savings accounts started filling up because the money wasn't being vacuumed out on dates that were never going anywhere. Men discovered hobbies they never had time for when they were busy managing someone else's emotions every night. They traveled. They built friend groups with other men who were also done performing for people who hated them. They got peaceful. And women noticed that at first it was little things. Why aren't men approaching me anymore? I have to message first now and it feels weird. Then it became panic. Videos started flooding TikTok, thousands of them. Beautiful women in full makeup sitting in their cars asking where all the good men went. Women in their 30s suddenly talking about their body count like it was a minor detail instead of the giant red flag it actually is in the real world. Podcast full of women saying men have become low value while completely missing the irony that they spent 15 years telling men exactly that. And the disbelief, you can feel it in their voices. They genuinely cannot compute that the strategy of make men jump through endless hoops and then shame them when they do actually worked. They thought men would never leave. They thought the need for female validation was hard coded into male DNA, and that no matter how bad it got, men would keep coming back like abused dogs to a porch. They were wrong. Men adapted, men evolved, men walked away, and discovered that on the other side of walking away was the best life most of them had ever had. And now we're watching the fallout in real time. You see it in the dating stats, marriage rates collapsing faster than at any point in recorded history. You see it in the birth rates, countries issuing emergency warnings because nobody is having kids anymore. You see it in the housing market, single men in their 30s and 40s buying homes in cash, while women the same age cry on TikTok that they can't find anyone to build with. You see women who spent their 20s telling men, my money is my money and your money is our money, suddenly discovering that when you remove men from the equation, the math doesn't work anymore. Rent doesn't care about your gender studies degree. Groceries don't accept I'm a queen as payment. And the government checks that were supposed to replace husbands, they're smaller than anyone wants to admit and getting smaller every year. This is the part nobody wanted to say out loud 10 years ago, but everybody can see now. Men were never just boyfriends or husbands or walking wallets. Men were the buffer between women and reality. Men built the houses, fixed the cars, paid the bills, took out the trash, and most importantly, kept the state at arm's length. Every right women demanded was quietly enforced and protected by men who had skin in the game. And the moment those men walked away, the cold truth revealed itself. Those weren't rights, they were privileges. Privileges maintained by men who love their mothers, their sisters, their daughters, their wives. Privileges that are now evaporating faster than anyone can believe. And the craziest part of this whole story, men aren't angry anymore. That's what's driving women insane. They expected rage. They expected violence. They expected pushback. They got peace. Millions of men waking up in apartments they own, drinking coffee they brewed themselves, going to gyms where nobody films them for clout, making more money than they've ever made, surrounded by brothers who have their back, and feeling something they haven't felt in years, like genuine contentment and no drama, no walking on eggshells, no coming home to someone who resents you for existing, no more pretending her feelings are more important than objective reality, no more watching everything you build get taken in a divorce settlement because she was bored. Just peace. And women look at that peace, that quiet, unbreakable peace, and they don't know what to do with it because you can't argue with a man who doesn't argue back. You can't cry to manipulate a man who sees the tears and simply nods and goes back to reading his book. You can't shame a man who no longer cares what you think of him. That's the black pill that most people still don't want to swallow. The red pill showed us that women don't think the way we were told they do. The black pill showed us exactly how far the rabbit hole goes and that there's no bottom. Female nature, left unchecked by any consequence or accountability, is brutal, chaotic, and almost entirely emotion driven. And once men see it, really see it, there's no unseeing it. You watch a woman turn on the tears like a faucet the second she realizes it will get her what she wants, then turn them off the moment the camera stops rolling. You watch her rewrite history in real time to make herself the victim and you the villain. You watch her keep a roster of backup options while demanding you stay loyal or you're trash. You watch her scream, "I don't need a man." Hey guys, in a world pushing you to own nothing and be happy, crypto is your key to survival. Join Angry's Crypto Academy to master buying, selling, and trading crypto. Make huge profits and safeguard your wealth. Plus, discover the one crypto virtually no one is talking about, poised to create new millionaires in the upcoming bull run. The link is in the description of the video below. Go check it out now, while secretly panicking that her lifestyle is about to collapse without one. And you realize this isn't a bug. This is the feature. So men stopped trying to fix it. They stopped trying to save her from herself. They stopped believing that if they just loved her hard enough, communicated better, made more money, she would finally be happy. They realized happy wives are a myth. There's only temporary compliance until the next wave of boredom or social media validation hits. And once that clicks, once a man internalizes that truth, something dies inside him and something else is born. Freedom, real, unbreakable freedom, the kind of freedom that comes from knowing you no longer have to play a game that was rigged from the start. And that's where we are right now in 2025. Men all over the world quietly building lives that don't include the chaos, the drama, the financial extraction, or the legal landmines. Men going to the gym, stacking money, traveling with their boys, building businesses, and sleeping like babies at night because nobody can take half of what they own tomorrow morning on a whim. And women, many of them for the first time in their lives, are coming face to face with the world they demanded, a world without male protection, a world where the state is the only husband left, a world where strong and independent meets reality and reality doesn't negotiate. And the wildest part of this entire story, most men aren't celebrating anyone's downfall. They're not dancing in the streets. They're not making revenge videos. They're just living, living better than they ever have. While the people who told them to go away 15 years ago are now making daily videos asking and sometimes begging for them to please come back. But the door closed, the combination got changed, and most men have zero intention of ever opening it again. We're only getting started. What I just laid out is barely the prologue. In the next part, we're going to go deep into exactly how the family court system, the divorce industry, and decades of institutional bias trained an entire generation of men to see marriage as financial suicide. We're going to look at the numbers, the real numbers behind the loneliness epidemic and who it's actually hitting hardest. We're going to talk about what happens to a society when the people who build and maintain everything simply stop caring whether it stands or falls. And most importantly, we're going to talk about what comes next because this story isn't over. It's barely begun. So stay locked in. And here we are, deeper into the story now, deeper than most people have the stomach to go. Let me paint the next scene for you. It's 2018, 2019, right at the peak of the Me Too wave. Every week, another famous man is being erased from existence because a woman decided years later that something that happened in a room nobody else was in made her feel uncomfortable. No evidence required, no trial, no chance to defend yourself. Just accusation, cancellation, unemployment, and in some cases, prison. Regular guys, not celebrities, just normal dudes with normal jobs, started watching this unfold and did the math real quick. One wrong text message, one joke she didn't like 5 years from now. One night where she regrets it in the morning and decides to rewrite the story. One false claim, and your entire life is ash. And the courts, forget about it. Family court had already been a running joke for 20 years. Men walking in with 50-50 custody requests and walking out with every other weekend and a bill for child support that keeps him broke until the kid is 25. Men watching their ex move the new boyfriend into the house he's still paying the mortgage on while he sleeps on a buddy's couch because he can't afford rent after the garnishment hits. Men watched their fathers get destroyed. They watched their uncles get cleaned out. They watched their best friends lose everything because she filed first and the judge decided best interest of the child means mom gets whatever she wants. And then the final nail, the culture started celebrating it. Memes about taking him to the cleaners, TikToks laughing about how much money she got in the settlement, women openly bragging that they never have to work again because they married a guy for 4 years, had one kid, and now collect a check for the next 2 decades. Men saw all of it. They saw the risk reward math, and it looked like this: work your entire life, meet a girl, get married, have a couple good years. She gets bored. She files. You lose your kids, your house, your savings, your reputation, and half your future income. She posts dancing videos with her new boyfriend in the house you used to own. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's the average outcome backed by decades of court statistics. So men did what any rational person does when they see a game that's rigged from the jump. They stop playing. Marriage rates didn't just dip, they fell off a cliff. In the United States, we went from roughly 70% of men married by age 40 in the 1980s to barely 50% today. And that number is still plummeting. And in some countries in Asia, it's actually worse. Korea is sitting at marriage rates so low, the government is holding emergency meetings like it's a national security crisis, because it is. When men stop marrying and stop having children, civilizations don't adjust, they die. But that's a problem for tomorrow. For right now, the men who walked away are living the best years of their lives. Let me tell you about a guy I know. I'll call him Marcus. Marcus is 36. 10 years ago, he was deep in the matrix, engaged to a girl he thought was the one, planning the wedding, picking out houses, talking about kids, the whole script. Then one night, he's at a buddy's bachelor party, and the conversation turns real. One of the older guys, been divorced twice, lays it all out, shows him the child support tables, shows him what alimony looks like in their state, shows him the statistics on who actually gets custody, shows him the horror stories from guys they both know. Marcus went home that night, opened his laptop, and started reading. He didn't sleep. He read divorce horror stories until the sun came up. He read the laws. He read the prenup failure rates. He read the statistics on false accusations. He read until he couldn't deny the pattern anymore. 2 weeks later, he called off the wedding, returned the ring, took the financial hit on the deposits. His fiancee cried, screamed, called him every name in the book. His family said he was making the biggest mistake of his life. Her family threatened to sue him for emotional damages. He didn't care. He moved into a small apartment, started lifting again, got his money right, and within 18 months, his life looked unrecognizable. No debt except a car note, 6 figures in the bank, passport full of stamps, circle of brothers who actually have his back. Last time I talked to him, he said the only thing he regrets is not walking away sooner. He told me, and I quote, "I spent years terrified of dying alone. Turns out dying alone is the best case scenario compared to what almost happened to me." That's not one guy, that's thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. Men who looked at the contract being offered, like marriage, cohabitation, kids in this legal environment, and quietly said, hard pass. And now the ripple effects are everywhere. You can't go on social media without seeing some variation of the same video. A woman in her late 30s or early 40s, usually attractive, usually dressed to the nines, sitting in her car or her apartment, asking the camera through tears, where did all the good men go? Why won't men commit anymore? And the comments, the comments are a war zone. Half the guys are laughing, and the other half are calmly explaining in detail why the deal on the table is no longer acceptable to any man with options and a functioning brain. And the disbelief in her voice every single time is the same. She genuinely cannot process that the strategy of raise your standards to impossible levels, treat average men like garbage, and then demand a top tier man lock you down forever didn't work out the way TikTok told her it would. These are the same women who spent their 20s telling men they weren't tall enough, rich enough, exciting enough, emotionally available enough, dangerous enough, safe enough, whatever the flavor of the week was. The same women who bragged about their body counts like they were collecting Pokemon cards. The same women who said, I don't want kids, until the biological clock started screaming, and suddenly it's, I was lied to by society. And now they're shocked, this unit legitimately shocked, that the men they rejected at 24 aren't lining up to wife them up at 34. I want you to really let that sink in. An entire generation of women spent a decade telling men in every possible way, we do not need you. We do not want you unless you are perfect. And even then, we still might leave the second something better comes along. And men said, okay. And now that the consequences are here, the main reaction from that same group is not reflection. It's not accountability. It's not maybe we went too far. It's anger that men had the audacity to listen. That's the part that keeps me up at night sometimes, not out of sadness, but out of sheer fascination. They really thought the leash was permanent. They really thought male thirst was an infinite resource, like wind or sunlight, something they could tax forever and it would never run out. They never considered the possibility that one day men would look at the cost benefit analysis, shrug, and say, I'm good, love, enjoy the cats. And now we're here. We're watching the slow motion collapse of an entire social order built on the assumption that men would never ever stop showing up, no matter how badly they were treated. And the wildest part, most men aren't even mad anymore. That's what separates this moment from every other male backlash in history. This isn't the 1970s where guys were burning bras in protest. This isn't some incel rage movement screaming in basements. This is millions of regular men, your coworker, your cousin, the dude at the gym, your barber, quietly opting out and living better lives than they ever imagined possible. They're not screaming, they're not begging, they're not shooting up malls or writing manifestos. They're just gone. Gone to the gym, gone to the bank, gone to Thailand or Colombia or Poland, where women still smile when a man walks into the room. Gone into their purpose, their money, their peace. And the silence is deafening because you can shame a man who still cares what you think. You can guilt a man who still wants your approval. You can manipulate a man who still believes you're the prize. But when a man looks at you, sees the full picture, and decides you're not worth the risk, the hassle, or the price of admission, there's nothing left to pull, no lever left to move him. That's the real black pill. Not hate, not bitterness, indifference, cold, clear, unbreakable indifference. And indifference, my friends, is the one thing a woman's emotional machinery has no defense against. She can handle anger. She's built for drama. She spent her whole life navigating male attention and male emotion. But when the attention just stops, when the frame is gone, when the man looks at her tears, her yelling, her threats, her begging, and simply says, okay, and goes back to his day, that's checkmate. And that's exactly what's happening on a mass scale right now. Women are discovering that all the power they thought they had, sexual power, emotional power, social power, was always 100% contingent on men caring. The moment men stop caring, the emperor has no clothes. And the emperor is realizing it in real time. That's why you're seeing this explosion of content. Podcasts, TikToks, YouTube channels, entire conferences dedicated to one question. How do we get men to care again? They're calling it the loneliness epidemic. They're calling it a crisis of masculinity. They're blaming video games, PR, social media, Andrew Tate, Jordan Peterson, anyone but the mirror. But the mirror is there, and it's reflecting back something they never prepared for: consequences, real, tangible, life altering consequences for decades of choices. And the craziest part of this whole thing, most men don't want revenge. They don't want anyone to suffer. They just want to be left alone. They want to build their little fortress of peace and live in it without someone trying to kick the door down every 5 years. They want to keep what they earn. They want to sleep at night without worrying that tomorrow a text message from 10 years ago is going to cost them everything. They want simplicity. And for the first time in modern history, they're within reach of it. So when women ask, where are all the good men? The answer is simple. They're right where you told them to go. They went their own way and they're not coming back. We still have a long way to go in this story. Next, we're going to talk about the economic fallout that's just starting to hit. How millions of women are about to discover that having a job and being able to survive without a man are two very different things. We're going to talk about the coming state marriage, where the government becomes the new husband, and why that's going to be the worst deal in human history. We're going to talk about the passport movement and why millions of men are voting with their feet. And we're going to talk about what the world looks like 10 years from now when the last illusions are stripped away and everyone finally has to live with the world they built. So keep it locked. This ride is just getting started. Now let's talk money, because everything we've covered so far, the peace, the silence, the indifference, is only possible because men finally started treating their money like it actually belongs to them. For decades, the average man operated under a very simple financial plan. Work like a dog. Hand the majority of the fruits of that labor to a woman, either directly through dating marriage or indirectly through taxes that fund lifestyles he'll never be part of. Hope she sticks around long enough for it to feel worth it. That plan is dead, buried, and the autopsy is brutal. Here's a number almost nobody wants to say out loud. The average unmarried man under 45 in 2025 has more disposable income, more savings, and less debt than at any point since they started keeping records. Meanwhile, the average unmarried woman in the same age group is broke, in more debt than ever, and getting louder every month about how impossible life is. That's not an opinion. That's Federal Reserve data, credit bureau reports, and banking statistics all saying the same thing at the same time. Men stopped spending money on women, and the effect was immediate and massive. No more $200 first dates that go nowhere. No more paying for her friend's drinks so she feels comfortable. No more moving her into an apartment he pays for while she figures out her career. No more engagement rings that cost 3 months' salary so she can show off to people she hates. No more weddings that cost the price of a house so her special day can be perfect for 12 hours. No more joint accounts she drains the day she decides she's bored. Men looked at the price tag on modern dating and modern marriage and said, I can buy freedom for that amount. I'll take door number 2. And they did. The minimalist movement you see exploding right now isn't some hipster trend. It's men realizing that 90% of what they were spending money on was female proximity tax. Cut the tax, keep the money, and suddenly life is affordable again. I want you to picture a 32-year-old guy in 2015. He's making $75,000 a year. After taxes, he's got maybe $50,000 take home. He's dating seriously, so $500 to $800 a month disappears on dates, gifts, trips, concerts, the whole performance. He moves in with his girlfriend to save money, but somehow the rent is higher, the groceries are organic, the furniture has to come from West Elm, and the streaming services multiply like rabbits. Next thing he knows, he's got $2,000 in the bank and he's proposing because that's what you're supposed to do. Fast forward to 2025 version of the same guy who woke up. Same 75,000 salary. Actually, it's higher now because he got promotions once he stopped being emotionally distracted. He lives in a small apartment he actually likes, cooks his own meals, buys the tech and the tools and the gym membership he wants, travels 3 or 4 times a year with his boys, has a brokerage account and a crypto wallet that make him smile every time he opens the app. Same income, totally different life, and the gap is only getting wider. Because while men were cutting the fat, a huge percentage of women were doing the exact opposite, doubling down on lifestyle inflation based on the assumption that a man would eventually show up to fund it. Like, you've seen the videos. The ones where she's 29, makes 45,000 a year, lives in a luxury apartment she can't afford, has a designer bag habit, eats at expensive brunch places every weekend, and then cries on camera that men won't even pay for a coffee date anymore. She's not exaggerating, and men won't. Because men finally did the math and realized that paying for a $12 oat milk latte so a stranger can judge whether you're worth a second date is officially the worst ROI in human history. And once enough men made that decision at the same time, the entire simp economy collapsed overnight. Restaurants that relied on first dates for half their revenue started closing. Nightclubs that survived on bottle service bought by guys trying to impress women went dark. Jewelry stores that banked on engagement season started laying people off. Entire Instagram industries built around how to get him to spend money on you vanished. The ripple effects are still spreading. And here's where it gets really interesting. A lot of women are now discovering that having a career and being financially independent are two completely different skill sets. Having a job that pays the bills when you're 24 and splitting rent with 3 roommates is easy. Having a career that can sustain a middle class lifestyle completely on your own at 34 when the rent has tripled and the roommates are gone, that's a different beast. And the data is merciless. Women are defaulting on credit cards at rates we haven't seen since the 2008 crash. Car repossessions for single women under 40 are through the roof. Subscription services are starting to report massive churn from female customers who can no longer afford the $400 a month lifestyle bundle they signed up for when they thought a boyfriend was going to appear and take over the bills. And the panic is starting to show. You can feel it in the content. The tone changed sometime in late 2023. It went from, I don't need a man, I have my own money, to why won't men be providers anymore in less than 24 months? They're not even hiding it now. You've got influencers with 500,000 followers openly saying, I make good money, but I still expect a man to pay for everything because that's his role. Let that sink in. She makes 6 figures, but your role as a man is still to pay for her lifestyle because tradition, that's not tradition. That's a subscription plan with extra steps. And men are canceling that subscription in droves. The phrase you hear more than any other from men right now is, I'm not against dating, I'm against paying for the privilege of being disrespected. That's the new standard. If a woman wants access to a man's time, resources, commitment, or even attention in 2025, she has rim. She has to bring something to the table that isn't just the same thing every other woman is offering. And for the first time in 50 years, just existing while female is no longer enough. That's why you're seeing this bizarre wave of women trying to rebrand themselves overnight. Suddenly everyone is traditional. Suddenly everyone wants to cook and clean and submit. Suddenly body counts are private and not important. Suddenly the same women who called men controlling for wanting a virgin are now saying they want to be homemakers who never leave the house. It would be funny if it wasn't so desperate, because men have pattern recognition now. We've seen this movie before. We've seen the girl who swears she's not like the others until the ring is on the finger and the mask comes off. We've seen the traditional values girl who lasts exactly 6 months before she's bored and scrolling Tinder again. We've seen the born again virgin routine from women who spent their 20s collecting jerseys. Men aren't falling for the rebrand, they're just watching it happen and eating popcorn. Because the marketplace has spoken, and the marketplace says risk too high, reward too low, juice not worth the squeeze. Now I want to zoom out for a second and talk about something nobody is ready to hear yet. We are on the cusp of the biggest transfer of wealth from the state back to men in human history. Right now, millions of men are child free, debt free, and sitting on assets that are compounding every year. Meanwhile, millions of women made life decisions based on the assumption that either a high value man would appear and subsidize everything, or B, the government would step in and play husband. Option A is gone, and option B is about to get a very rude reality check because governments are broke. The same governments that promised women they could replace men with bureaucracy are now staring at demographic collapse, shrinking tax bases, and pension systems that are mathematically impossible to sustain. Countries all over the world are starting to float ideas that would have been political suicide 5 years ago. Mandatory singleton taxes on unmarried adults, higher income taxes on childless women, government dating apps with forced participation. In some places, they're already doing it. Hungary, Poland, South Korea, Japan. They're literally paying people to get married and have kids because the system is collapsing without new taxpayers. And who do you think is going to get stuck with the bill when the welfare state can no longer afford to play daddy? Exactly. The same men who were told they were disposable are about to become the most valuable resource on planet Earth again, not because women suddenly love them, but because the state needs their labor and their taxes to keep the lights on. And this time, men know the score. They've seen what happens when you hand over your productivity to people who hate you. They're not signing up for round two. That's why you're seeing the explosion in men moving assets offshore, stacking crypto, going nomadic, getting second passports. They're not waiting around to see how bad it gets. They're preparing for the moment when the state comes knocking and says, "We need you to marry these single mothers and fund their lifestyles, or the economy collapses." The answer is going to be a unified global no. And when that day comes, and it's coming faster than people think, the last illusion falls. Women will finally understand that every privilege they enjoyed wasn't because of feminism or girl power. It was because men allowed it, men enforced it, men paid for it. And the moment men stop paying, stop enforcing, stop allowing, it's gone. That's the great humiliation I keep talking about. It's not men putting women down, it's women discovering in real time exactly how much of their lifestyle and status was built on male sacrifice they spent decades spitting on. And the craziest part, most men won't even be around to watch it happen. They'll be on a beach in Thailand, or in a gym in Poland, or running a business from a laptop in Colombia, living lives that would have been impossible 10 years ago. Free, finally free. And that freedom is the one thing no amount of shaming, no amount of crying, no amount of government coercion will ever take away again. We still have thousands of words to go. Next, we're diving into the passport movement and why millions of men are voting with their feet. We're going to talk about the coming war between the state and male autonomy. We're going to look at what society looks like when the builders go on strike. And we're going to close this out with the one question nobody wants to ask. When the dust settles, who actually wins? Let's talk passports, real passports, the kind that get stamps, not the kind women post on Instagram with the caption, "My passport stays thick." We're talking about the single greatest male migration in modern history. And it's happening right now, quietly, under the radar, while most people are still arguing about who should pay for dinner. Millions of men have looked at the deal on the table in the West and made the simplest decision of their lives: leave. Not out of hate, not out of bitterness, out of pure, cold, mathematical self interest. They looked at the cost of living, the legal risks, the dating market, the cultural hostility, the tax burden, the weather, all of it, and said, "I can get a better deal literally anywhere else on planet Earth." And they're right. You've got guys making $70,000 a year in Ohio who move to Medellin, Colombia, and live like millionaires. Apartment with a view of the mountains for $600 a month, private gym for $30 a month, maid that cooks and cleans 3 times a week for $150 a month, and dates with women who actually smile, dress feminine, and don't have a laundry list of demands before you've even said hello. Same guy back home was spending $2,200 a month on a 1 bedroom shoebox, eating Uber Eats alone, and getting ghosted after paying for 3 dates. Do the math. Or take Eastern Europe, Poland, Hungary, Czech Republic, Romania, where men landing in Warsaw or Krakow discover women who still believe being pleasant is part of the deal. Women who cook, who want families, who don't see masculinity as a mental disorder, all at a cost of living laughably low compared to any major Western city. Southeast Asia, Thailand, Philippines, Vietnam offers men who were invisible in the West waking up to women half their age fighting for their attention, while Bali co-working spaces fill with digital nomads in their 30s and 40s who sold everything, moved, and now work 4 hours a day from a villa with a pool. Latin America, Eastern Europe, Southeast Asia, three entire regions where the average Western man walks in and immediately becomes top 10% by default, not because he's rich by global standards, he's not, but because the bar in the West has been dragged so low that just being normal, stays so stable and masculine makes you a unicorn somewhere else. And they're not coming back. That's the part nobody in the West wants to admit. These aren't vacations. These are one-way tickets. Guys sell the truck, empty the 401k into crypto, get a second passport, Cyprus, Turkey, Paraguay, wherever issues them fast, and disappear. They keep their remote job or online business, pay 10 to 20% of what they used to in living expenses, date women who treat them like human beings, and send postcards that say, "Wish you were here," to the ex who took half their stuff. And the numbers are getting insane. In 2024 alone, Colombia issued more residency visas to American men under 45 than the previous 5 years combined. Thailand's elite visa program sold out of 5 year packages in months, almost entirely to Western men. Poland's digital nomad visa waitlist is now over a year long. This isn't a trend, this is an exodus. Back home, the reaction is pure panic. Western women making videos titled "Men Are Cowards for Leaving," while missing the irony that they spent a decade telling those same men to get lost, politicians floating exit taxes on single men who leave, dating coaches telling women to lock down a man before he discovers geo arbitrage. Too late. The cat is out of the bag, across the border, and sipping a beer on the beach while texting a 24-year-old who thinks he's a king. And the best part? These men aren't angry, they're grateful. They send messages all the time. Bro, I wish someone had told me this was an option 10 years ago. I wasted my entire 20s trying to make it work in a place that hated me. That's the real story nobody is telling. This isn't about winning against women. This is about men finally discovering that the world is massive, that the West is not the center of the universe, and that peace of mind is for sale at a price most of them can now afford. And once a man tastes that kind of freedom, waking up in a country where nobody is filming him at the gym, where women smile when he opens the door, where his money stretches for decades, where he's not one accusation away from losing everything. Good luck getting him back on the plantation. That door doesn't just close, it gets welded shut. Now let's talk about the state. The state has watched all of this happen, and the state is nervous, very nervous. Governments don't care about your happiness. They care about tax revenue and birth rates, and right now both are collapsing in every developed country at the same time. Japan is projected to lose 40% of its population by 2100. South Korea's fertility rate is 0.72, less than one child per woman. Italy, Spain, Germany, all heading the same direction. The math is apocalyptic. Every modern welfare state was built on a pyramid scheme. Young workers pay for old retirees. When the young stop being born, or when the young men who pay the majority of taxes check out, the whole thing collapses. And governments know it. That's why you're seeing the early stages of the crackdown. Mainstream articles asking, should we restrict men from leaving the country? Politicians floating higher taxes on childless adults. Guess who that hits hardest? Proposals in Europe to make second passports harder for men to get. They're testing the waters because the nightmare scenario for every Western government isn't climate change or war. It's millions of productive men realizing they don't have to live under a system that treats them like utilities. When the tax cattle figure out the fence is imaginary, the whole farm falls apart and the clock is ticking. In the next decade, we're going to see the state try everything to drag men back into the harness. Guilt campaigns, shaming campaigns, financial penalties, maybe even laws. And it's going to fail because you can't force a man who's tasted freedom to come home and put the chains back on. You can't shame a man who no longer cares what you think of him. You can't tax a man whose money is in crypto, whose address is a P.O. box in Panama, and whose cost of living is lower than your welfare payment. The genie is out of the bottle and he's not going back in. Here's the part where the story gets almost biblical. For decades, men were told they were the problem, that their desires were dangerous, their natural instincts toxic, their role to shut up, provide, and apologize for existing. And men, being men, tried to fix themselves. Therapy, books, seminars, learning to cry on command, saying, yes, dear, suppressing every natural urge because it might make someone uncomfortable. And it never worked. The goalpost moved every single time. The more men tried to become what they were told women wanted, the more they were told they were failing. Until finally enough men realized this isn't about improvement, this is about control. And the moment that clicked, the game was over. Men don't mind hard work when there's a purpose, sacrifice when it's appreciated, building when they get to keep what they build. But when the deal is give everything and receive contempt in return, only one kind of man keeps playing. And that man is dying off. The new man, the 2025 and beyond man, doesn't hate women, doesn't fear women. He simply doesn't need them to complete his life. He's whole on his own. And that wholeness is the most dangerous thing in the world to a system that relied on male incompleteness. When a man no longer needs external validation, no longer defines his worth by who chooses him, when he looks in the mirror and likes what he sees, regardless of who's standing next to him, that man is untouchable. No shaming works, no guilt works, no threat works. He's free. And freedom, once tasted, is addictive. And that's why this movement isn't slowing down, it's accelerating. Every day, another man wakes up, deletes the dating apps, cancels the therapy that was teaching him to hate himself, hits the gym, fixes his finances, and starts planning his exit, whether across the world or just across the street into his own peace. And every day, another woman wakes up and realizes the old rules don't work anymore. Tears, demands, threats, shaming, none of it works because the audience walked out of the theater and they're not coming back for the sequel. This is the great humiliation in its purest form. Not because men are celebrating anyone's pain, but because reality itself is delivering the most brutal, undeniable lesson any generation has ever received. Actions have consequences, words have meaning, and when you spend decades telling half the population they're worthless, eventually they believe you and stop showing up. God didn't strike anyone down, no lightning bolt, no plague, just cause and effect. Just millions of individual men making the same quiet decision. I choose peace. And in choosing peace, they change the world. Imagine 10 years from now, 2035. The first wave of men who walked away in their 30s are in their mid 40s. They own property in multiple countries, have investment accounts that make them wealthy by any standard, hold passports that let them live wherever they want. And many have young families with women who never swallowed the Western programming. Meanwhile, back in the West, an entire generation of women who thought, I'll settle when I'm ready, are turning 45, 50, 55, alone, broke, and realizing the state isn't the husband they were promised. The government safety net is in tatters because there aren't enough young men paying into it. Birth rates are catastrophic. Housing prices in major cities have collapsed because there's nobody left to buy the overpriced apartments. And the culture is a museum of coping. Endless articles about rewilding masculinity and bringing men back. Government programs paying women to have children by any means necessary. A whole generation of children growing up without fathers because the men who could have been those fathers looked at the deal and said, no, thank you. And the men who left? They're living their best lives, quietly, happily, finally free. When historians look back, they won't call it the end of feminism. They'll call it the end of the greatest social experiment in human history. The experiment that asked, what happens when you remove all consequences for one half of the population and all rewards for the other? We have the answer now. One half lives in peace, the other half discovers reality, never cared about their feelings. And that, my friends, is the story of our time. The story they'll teach in whatever schools are left 100 years from now, not with anger or celebration, just with the cold, clear truth. All roads lead to men walking away. Now, I want to hear from you. What did you think about everything we just went through? Do you see this playing out in your own life, your friends, your city? Are you at peace yet, or are you still on the journey? Drop your thoughts in the comments. No filter. Say what you really think. Like the video if it hit home, subscribe if you're not already, and if it resonated hard, share it with one man who needs to hear it today. All roads lead to MWA, men walking away. And cheers.
Nothing says you care like crypto. Nothing can compare. Nothing says you care like crypto. Oh, nothing can compare to crypto.